opportunities are everywhere. You just have to go out and find them. They are everywhere, even in a pandemic.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Humans of Mitti Ke Rang podcast. And today we have with us the very enthusiastic, vivacious, and brilliant Tisha Marie paleteer, all the way from Phoenix. Hi, Tisha.
Hi, good to be here, and great intro, by the way.
Thank you
I
so
love
much.
that.
I'm so glad to have you. And just for our audience to get a little of a background of, what you exactly do, let me just give you a brief gist about Tisha. So Tisha Marie Paleteer started with her own enterprise. She's the founder and CEO of the Tisha Marie Enterprises, and she's also a professional speaker who has got her own podcast, which is called the Success Over Struggle podcast. Not just that, she's got 3 books published under her name. And what drives her is helping young budding entrepreneurs and helping startups in every which way that she can. So, welcome to the show, Tisha. And I'm
Thank
glad again to
you.
have you. Yeah.
Thank you. And congrats to you, Daria, for having me on and for this being your first podcast. I know I love it when people get out of their own way and just get started. It's like my heart.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm glad to have you as my first guest. And yeah, I hope that our viewers have an amazing and insightful session along the way. So, yeah, to begin with, Tisha, I really wanted to know how did you founded the Tisha Marie Enterprises. So, could you let us know more about it?
Sure. Well, Tisha Marie Enterprises is actually my fourth business. So I started my first business in 2004, and it
Right.
was a marketing company called Simply Put Marketing.
Okay.
And then from there, had also run an event management company, a mom entrepreneurs group called the Mom E-Club.
Okay.
And Tisha Marie Enterprises is honestly, it's a combination of everything that I love to do and everything that I didn't want to do, I left behind. And so I got really clear on what I really love to do. And as you mentioned, I love helping budding entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs get their start, get funded, and move into action. So that's honestly like my biggest thing that I love to do, along with the professional speaking and so forth.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, 4 businesses. Okay, I think our viewers have got a lot there. So, can I know a bit more about how and when did you come up with the idea of starting your own organization?
Sure. So in 2004, I was working for an ad agency, a small boutique marketing firm, and I got to learn a ton. So that's really where I started learning about events,
Right.
marketing, PR, all of it. And,
Great.
honestly, I didn't feel like the organization had much room for advancement. I know that it was just like, I hate to say this, but like a sinking ship. And I think when you have that intuition, when you're like, oh, you know what, it's time for me to go, it's
Right.
time for you to go. And so I had already been thinking about starting a business further down the road, and it just came a lot quicker than I thought it would. I think that you just have to learn to trust your intuition and your gut, and when you know it's time, it's time. So I started my first company in September 2004. So I'm coming up on 16 years of being a business
Wow.
owner.
That is so amazing. I mean, that's literally amazing. So, Tisha, tell me something that, okay, entrepreneurship and helping budding entrepreneurs and startups, that's really amazing. How did the thought of starting with your own podcast come up, and why the title Success Over Struggle?
Well, being an entrepreneur is so much about the obstacles that we face. It's
Right.
not all glamorous. It's not, I'm going to be a business owner and I'm going to make it rich in the next night. Like, it's
Yeah.
none of that.
Yeah.
People understand that it's going to take a lot of time, it's patience, it's a lot of setbacks, but I always love the comeback.
Yeah.
And so Success Over Struggle honestly started as a live panel that I host at one of my live events called Social Connect.
Right.
And
Yeah.
because I get to meet all of these incredible people, but just in a short amount of time, I decided, why not make it a podcast too, where I could dive in a little bit deeper, get to know that person, develop relationships. Relationships are really important for me, especially in business. And just like you, like, I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast. Like, let's go do this. Had no idea.
Yeah.
Had no idea what I was doing. It was just a, kind of like a fly by the seat of your pants kind of moment. And now just finished up recording season 2, taking a break, and now going to hit season 3 coming up in the fall, and have so many more people, local entrepreneurs here in Arizona, who are excited to be on it, where I get to ask the questions. I get to say, let's share your story. Let's inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs, because your stories really do matter. They really do matter in terms of inspiring other people and helping them keep going and motivating them.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I'm so glad, because I'm sure, when people get to hear stories of all kinds of entrepreneurs from various ages, from various backgrounds and different walks of life, I think it also gives the budding entrepreneurs an overview, or, a kind of like a path to follow, or just some kind of guidance, because I believe entrepreneurship is a very, 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 something very unique. I mean, I don't think it's everyone's cup of tea. That's my opinion, Tisha. Because I think you have to have a very different mindset. You have to be someone who's a hustler and who's willing to, consistently be on something and have that passion and drive. Because, you cannot be someone who gives up easily, and you have to have that drive within you.
You do. I've shared that, and thank you for saying that. I don't feel that every person is an entrepreneur either. It takes a special person to want to jump on that roller coaster of risk taking and wondering when the reward is coming, and the patient game and all of it. And it's a lot of times it's feast or famine. It's like, I'm doing really well, and next month I have no idea what's going on. Like, it's a lot of uncertainty, and you've got to be able to be okay with the uncertainty, because it's not always going to just fall into your lap and when you want it. So I talk a lot about that, about sacrifices, and when I'm talking to someone, and I have no fault if someone tells me I don't want to be an entrepreneur, I'm like, that's great. I think it's good that you realize that, because you have to be disciplined. You have to, like you said, you can't throw in the towel so easily. You've got to get back in the game when you feel like you're down.
Exactly.
Like, there's all these things that you need to do, and if that's not you, then that's okay too.
Exactly. Right. So it's just okay to figure out what you're good at and what you're not, and if it is your cup of tea, as you said.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So moving on, Tisha, I'm very curious to know, how did the shift from broadcast journalism and marketing to entrepreneurship really happen?
I know I've shared this story with you before, but I'll share it for your listeners. I being from Arizona, I went to Arizona State University, and I graduated with my degree in broadcast journalism from Walter Cronkite, which is a very prestigious school for broadcasting.
Yeah.
And I remember sharing with you that I had one class, it was my senior year in college, and the professor brought in a guest speaker, and the guest speaker, she was so frank and blunt with the class, which I really admire. I admire when people don't sugarcoat it, because I want the truth. This is my life. I want the truth.
Right.
And she really started saying that if you're going to get into this industry, prepare yourself, because it's very cutthroat. It's very competitive. It's really a lot about your appearances and how you look, not so much your talent, your skills. And be prepared to, sacrifice family for getting ahead, and starting in small cities and moving your way up. And the more she kept talking, Terry, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I want to do this anymore. I don't know that this is my path. Although when I was going to school, and even before when I was in high school, I was dead set. I was like, this is it. I'm going to do this, and then, like I said, one class changed my whole mindset of, okay, maybe not. I remember going home to my boyfriend, who is now my husband, saying, I don't want to move to, this little town and, wherever. Like, I don't want to report that. Like, I already talked myself out of it. And I think that's the thing, is people need to realize that you can pivot anytime. You're not stuck. in that situation, you don't have to follow through with that path if something is better or something is calling you. And so for me, I took classes in marketing, business, promotions. I did a lot of internships, which really helped for me to understand if that's where I wanted to go with my career. And ultimately where I landed, as I shared, is I started working for a couple of ad agencies and learning as much as I could. I mean, that's the beauty of working for another company or interning, is you get to learn a
Yeah,
lot. I mean, I know, Daria, you just did an internship and you got to
yeah,
learn a ton
true, true.
and
Yeah,
figure out if that's where you want to stay or if you want to
exactly.
go, and you're
Yeah,
not tied down to it. So I did a couple of years, working for the Maan, working for ad agencies. And then I was like, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to leave and do this and try it. And always thinking in the back of my head that, if all else fails, I can always go back and get a job if I need to.
yeah.
But I'm going to do this. And not to say that I haven't done part-time things, but I've never gone back to a full-time position in 16 years, which
And
to
that
me is pretty commendable.
it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, I think very few people have that in themselves to find it early on in life, that what is it that they really want to do. And I believe taking that leap of faith is something very, very commendable, Tisha. Yeah.
Thank
And I'm
you.
sure that our viewers would be really amazed to know that it's been 16 years since you took that U-turn in your life and you've not looked back ever since.
No, only looking forward. I don't
Yeah,
believe in looking back.
exactly.
There's
Yeah,
a there's a really great saying that says, don't look back because you're not going that way. Like keep your eyes forward, keep your focus
exactly.
forward.
Right. I truly
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. So, Tisha, how did you go about juggling between your personal life with two kids and, kind of running over like a Herculean task of managing four businesses? How did you do it?
Well, I was managing three at the time and having my two kiddos. So I have an 11-year-old son, Caleb, and I had him in 2008 in the downturn of the economy, which was brilliant, brilliant planning on my behalf. And then I have a daughter who I had in 2011. So they're about 39 months apart.
Yeah,
And I'll just say, like, I'm going to be very honest. I feel like my 30s, I'm 40 now. So I turned 40 in September,
yeah.
last September. So I'm turning 41
Oh my
next
God.
month.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you don't look like 41 for sure. You can,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
It's good.
yeah,
It's my good Asian genes.
yeah, it is
That's
completely.
what I call
Yeah,
it. So having kids was definitely, it's different. Like you shift, your whole mind shifts. And for me, I was so entrepreneur, 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 and then I became a mom.
yeah,
And then I'm like, okay, how do I hold this in? How do I do
yeah,
this?
yeah,
How do I find my people? Like how do I do both? And I will say that I really took a step back from business, even though I was still running my business. I would say that I was doing it very kind of part-time-ish,
right.
but still running three different businesses, if you want to call that part-time.
Yeah,
But but really trying to figure out how I am a mom first and then I run the business. For me, family is very important. So I have to be there. I have to be there for my kids. Even now, I'm there for my kids. I have limited hours. I get it done when I can. The beauty of being an entrepreneur, though, Daria, is I
yeah,
don't need to stick within the 9 to 5 time. I don't need
exactly.
to have
Yeah,
lunch at noon.
yeah,
I think that's what you trade in, is you have that flexibility and that freedom to say, this is my day. I'll do what I want with it. If I want to work on a weekend, who cares? Like, my husband's home. He can watch the kids while I go work.
yeah,
Um, People ask me how I've written books. I wrote it in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m.
yeah. I mean, you are your own boss, right? You set your timings for yourself, you set your schedule for the week. Everything's up to you. I mean, it's
Right.
your enterprise, it's your goal, your vision, and I think that's something which can never come up with a 9 to 5 job. You won't have that flexibility and freedom no matter what.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. So it works. I mean, people ask, wow, I can't believe you did that. And I was like, well, it's what worked for me and worked for my family. I still had wins along the way. I was still getting clients. I was still getting things done. I
yeah,
still wrote my books in that time frame when the kids were young,
right,
but I did it on my own terms and my own time frame,
right.
which
which
it's
is
how you get
important.
things done.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very important. It's
Yeah.
important.
So
Yeah.
since you mentioned about the book, can you tell our viewers how did you get into writing? Okay, and getting into writing is a different thing, but ending up publishing 3 books is altogether a different thing. So please, enlighten us on that.
Sure. Well, I always knew I wanted to write a book. And in 2000, when my son was born in 2008, I knew that I wanted to have one in like 2000 timeframe. My first book came out, When the Universe Throws a Curveball,
Right.
and I really chronicled my journey. So it's a lot like journaling,
Yeah.
right? Like my books are very much a story in my life combined with a rule of life lesson that it taught me. And
Okay.
I still take that approach even now, years and years later, after the books
Right.
have been out. I'm very big into storytelling because, as I shared with Success Over Struggle, people learn from stories and they learn from experiences and
True.
they resonate with you, the person.
Yeah.
And so
And I,
with my book, I wanted to share my story, but more importantly, though, I want to stress that my books were written for my kids. They were not written for the mass general public. Like, it's great that people read my books and my stories, but I ultimately have the why behind it is I wanted my kids to have those stories when they got older.
wow.
And it's very much a leaving a legacy part for me, because I know they're going to look at those lessons, or they're going to read, or they're going to be like, I wonder what mom was doing back those, I wonder what her emotions were. I
Yeah.
wonder what, they're going to have so many questions. And I wanted to chronicle my journey too, to
Yeah.
say, what if I forget about these things in my life? I want to be able to go back and reread them.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
yes, so my books, I should say, were never intended to be like on the New York best-selling list or Amazon bestseller list. Like,
I,
awesome
yeah.
if it gets to that, but it was really more, hey, I'm going to put my diary, so to speak, out on the market.
Yeah.
And people, if you're reading it and you're gleaning insight from my stories, then that to me was worth it.
Yeah, it totally is. I'm so amazed, your thought process and the thought behind doing it for your kids rather than for the masses is so beautiful in itself. Just so that they could go back to it, refer to those stories, go through them and understand your frame of mind and how you got about doing things. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So, Tisha, having done so much in life in various aspects, what is it that still keeps you motivated, driven, and runs you through your day?
I am an idea person, honestly, Daria. I come up with ideas all the time. And if it's not for me, it's for the people I mentor. So
Okay.
I do a lot of business mentoring. And to me, that is the definition of success, is being able to help someone get their start, see their business through, get them to the other side, and knowing that I had a hand in that. So that's what motivates me, honestly. It's a very selfless way of looking at it, because my success really is derived by your success. I mean, I'm so amazed that you have me on as your first guest for your podcast. Like, that's incredible. Like, I want you to look at this as, this is a milestone. This is a first of many to come.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I want to do that. I mean, to me, that I get such a high, like, if I'm able to teach something that I've learned through all of my experiences and pass it on to you,
Yeah.
then that to me is ultimately just paying it forward. And that's what motivates me. I'm very motivated by other people learning and being successful.
Wow. That's so amazing. And yeah, I mean, I can relate to what you say because I believe that the happiness of that you get when you help someone else is something which is unparalleled. It cannot be compared to something else, right? Because you're doing something
Hmm.
for yourself is amazing, but along the way, helping others in their journey and seeing them reach a certain mark is incredible. I can only imagine if I get to help someone right from the scratch and get along and build their own business and have it up and running. I mean, it must have been an amazing feeling. And you've been doing that for 16 years now.
Pretty much. I mean, in different capacities, with Tisha Marie Enterprises now, I do a lot of business mentoring. So I mentor at Arizona State University. I'm
Okay.
getting ready to take on another role mentoring at a co-working space out here.
Wow.
But I do that. I mentor, and I love that. I love when people come to me with their struggle or where they're stuck, and I can help them get unstuck and keep moving on the journey, because it's no fun, you know that it's no fun
Yeah.
being stuck and being like, what am I
True.
supposed to do, like, so you really do need
Yeah.
someone in your corner that says, you know what, we're going to get through this, this is what we're going to do, you ready, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be that person for people because I believe in them, I believe in what they're capable of doing and the potential they have.
Right. That's amazing. So, Tisha, do you have any plans of moving on to mentoring or teaching per se, or anything like, becoming like a trainer of sorts? Is that something on your books as of now, or it's off the books?
It's actually something that I already do. So
Yeah.
part of my professional speaking, I get up and I talk about various topics. For me, networking, making the right types of connections, cultivating relationships is something I really speak quite a bit on. I'm getting ready to speak to on a conference like in the next week or so, and personal branding. I love being able to talk about that because I've gone through that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that walks the talk. I don't just want to tell you what to do without doing
Yeah.
it myself.
Agreed.
And so personal branding is something that that I feel I've really stepped up and said, okay, this is me. This is how it's going to be. I'm going to put myself out in this way, in this authentic way, and let's see where this goes. And so far, like, people are coming to me saying, wow, you're really authentic. I'm like, thank you, that's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings me to your LinkedIn, bio, and also you say that people think that the way you speak, the style of your speaking is authentic with a touch of badass. So I can't really read between the lines. I want you to elaborate on it. Or why specifically authentic with a touch of badass?
Well, so I was not, I did not come up with that name. I give a shout out always to Sophia Olivius because she gave me that headline, so to speak. She was listening to me speak at Phoenix Startup Week. So my first year
Okay.
speaking at Phoenix Startup Week, I was in a room with, I was in standing room only giving the speech about the 10 essentials every startup needs to crush it in
Right.
business. And I wasn't talking about, oh, you need an accountant and you need a marketing plan. Like, I was really talking about, you need these character traits if you're going to make it in this business.
Yeah.
And people really enjoyed that talk. In fact, I'm going to resurrect it and do it again. Because I think people need to understand that, especially people going into business now with 2020 and with COVID and so forth.
Right.
But Sophia, she came up to me at the end and she's like, oh my gosh, I just have to tell you. She's like, I heard you speak and I just have to say, you remind me of this. And she just laid it out. She's like, you are the authentic girl with a touch of badass. And I
Oh
had
wow.
just finished reading
Yeah.
the Jen Sincero books, the badass books. And I was just like, so taken aback, but very just excited about that, because I'm like, that's exactly how I should phrase this. And so I asked her for permission. I said, can I use that? She's like, I gave it to you. Like, yeah. I'm all, so it's really helped solidify my brand and how I want the world to see me, and
Right.
how I want them to know that, yes, I'm authentic, but I'm a little edgy and I
Yeah.
can be pretty bold and I don't sugarcoat. Like, I'm really big into, I'm just going to tell it to you straight in a polite yet firm way. But I really say with my personal brand, I am like the approachable girl you could have a coffee with for hours. I
Yeah.
tell a lot of stories. I don't hold back, and we move you forward. Like, that's really what my whole goal is in meeting people.
That's great. So I'm so happy that your friend did, come up with the name, because that's something that really catches any viewer's eye. To be very honest, as a third person, I really like it. It's something very unique and very personal to you. So again, I think
Mhm.
that comes into your personal branding, letting people know who you are just with a couple of words. So yeah, that's the power of words in general. Whether you're speaking or you put it out there or you write them down, and I think you're using them in all the three ways. So yeah, it sums up
Yes.
pretty well. Right.
Yes, I know. Honestly, you're always going to have naysayers, you're going to have doubters and
Exactly.
people who tell you, why are you using that? Like I did have a gentleman say, you know what, you're not in high school anymore. You don't need to say that. And I was like, hey, you know what? That actually gets me noticed. I said, people stop me because of that, because I am bold enough
Yeah.
to put the things out that I want to put out. I don't
Right.
hold back. That is being authentic. That is being true to who you are.
Yes.
And when he was telling me that, I'm like, I'm never going to take that down because that is what differentiates me from another person that does what I do.
Exactly.
And that's what you've got to figure out for you. It's like, what makes you stand out? Like, what makes you unique? And for me, that phrase, that little phrase has such a big, powerful message behind it. And I'm like, I'm keeping it. Sorry.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, it's okay. People are always gonna judge you no matter what you do. That's what I believe. It's all about what you believe in, and your family members and the close ones next to you, if they're by your side and you have self belief. I guess there's nothing that can stop you. You just have to go with
That's
your
huge.
intuition, as you said.
Exactly. Self-belief is huge. And I'll share, I didn't always have it. I've lost
Yeah.
confidence along the way. I've had to pick myself back up and move again.
Right.
And it's hard. It's really hard when you feel very defeated and you feel like you don't have it, and you compare yourself to other people. And it's a really rotten feeling, honestly. But
I know.
what you just said though is key. It's self-belief and self-love and self-worth.
Right. Right. That's so true. So, Tisha, coming back to what you're doing, how you're helping the society, giving back to people, what is your vision when it comes to your work moving forward?
Well, I've always been the person to pay it forward. And
Right,
I've shared this story with you in the past as well, that my birthday falls on estimated tax day here in Arizona. Well, actually, in the United States,
right,
we have April 15th as tax day, but September 15th happens to be my birthday, and it's also estimated tax day. And I just honestly got so tired of paying the government on my birthday that this year I said, enough is enough. It's time for a change. It's a new decade. I'm going to give that money back to another startup because
okay,
I've been given a grant and it was just like the best feeling on the entire planet for someone to believe in me that much to give me the money to
right,
be able to start one of my ideas. And that idea I had for 6 years. I ran it for 6 years. I did several events under that name and
wow,
brought a lot of women together, a lot of mom entrepreneurs together when I really needed it in my own life. And for me, that's ultimately the greatest gift, is paying it forward. I mean, we've already established that. We've already talked about that. Like when you get to help someone else find their way and find their path, that's the feeling. Like that's why you do it, or that's why I do it. That's why I do it, because I want to see those other people succeed. So every year, starting this year, every birthday of mine, I plan to give the grant to another individual. And it's global. Like, I don't know if I
yeah,
shared that with you, but I've gotten applications from all over the world. And
wow,
I'm so
amazing.
excited because it shows that entrepreneurship is not just here, it's
It's
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere.
People are branching out. They're getting ready to
True.
start a business. They're getting ready to yeah, to just say, hey, I've got this. This is my destiny. I'm going to go ahead and control it.
Agree. I think more than any time, now is the time when many people have come up with the concept of entrepreneurship, and they've understood what it truly is, and they're ready to take that leap of faith and take that risk and go ahead with it. So yeah, I see that everywhere. Here in India as well, with so many young people with amazing ideas at the back of their head, and all they need is just that little motivation, someone to back them with respect to funding, and yes, support them along the way. And we're seeing wonders with respect to technology startups, non-technical startups as well. So I'm so glad
Yes.
that you are funding them, helping them along their journey. It's amazing.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And that's honestly another thing that I feel sets me apart. When we're talking about what makes you stand out, that's something that's really, really near and dear to me. Like
Right.
I want to be able to do that. I am grateful that I have the means to be able to do that and do it year after year after year.
Exactly.
And it's not just me that's coming alongside this. I didn't share with you, but that value of the grant has just quadrupled because so many other businesses have come on board and said, Tisha, can I give your recipient this? Can I give him this? Can I do this? And so it's a really great package for someone who's just getting started to have the mentoring, the guidance, the consulting, the
Right.
support that they need to
Yeah.
get their business going on the right path.
Agreed. Agreed. We all need guidance when it comes to anything in life, and entrepreneurship in itself needs a ton load of things which we've already discussed about. And I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing. Yeah,
Thank you. Me too.
that's amazing. So, Tisha, what advice do you have for someone who aspires to do something on the same path as you? Or what advice do you have for the youth in general?
I would say my biggest advice is don't do it alone. You're not alone on the journey. I know that it can feel very isolating,
Yeah,
especially if you were just getting started to know where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. But there are countless resources and countless people out there who, if you ask, if you have, if you're bold enough to ask, and I highly encourage you to ask,
yeah,
then people are always willing to support you and help you. Like that's the greatest gift I feel is when you learn something new that you can pass it on to the next person. So it's like the student who becomes the teacher,
right.
and I love that. I mean, when I started, I was like,
Yeah,
what's an elevator pitch? Like, what am I supposed to say at these networking meetings? Like,
yeah,
I was that person. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I know how to work for a company, but I don't know how to start my own company.
right.
And I'm grateful that people took me under their wing and said, let me help you. Let's get you some clients. Let's build your business. Let's do
Yeah,
this. Like it's people are out there, but you've got to be willing to ask again. It's not this, let me just do it on my own. You will get there so much quicker if you have the support, the mentoring of people who are 10 steps ahead of you to help you when you're just getting started.
true. That's amazing. So, if I was to ask you, what are the top three things that you really stand for and which you followed throughout your life, right? What would they be? Something, some things or some values that you've held close to yourself and always stuck by them. The top three values.
So for me, value is integrity. Um, it's about doing things. I mean, what do they say? Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's looking.
Right,
And
right.
integrity. If you don't have integrity, in fact, that's one of my 10 essentials. I start with integrity. If you don't have integrity, you're not going to be in this business for a very long time because people see right through that. If you
Exactly.
continuously hurt people to get ahead,
Yeah.
that's going to come back to bite you. I believe in karma.
So do I. I'm a huge karma believer. Yeah.
I believe that comes back to you if you treat it wrong.
Yeah. Agreed.
You treat people wrong.
Yeah.
The other thing is in terms of core values. I think that just again being authentic. I share that a lot. I share that being authentic is huge. It's people can see if you're putting up a facade or if you're being fake or if you're not being truthful to them.
Yeah.
And you have to like you just live with authenticity. I've been at a point years ago where I felt like I was wearing the mask all the time. And it was really exhausting. It was very tiring. And it caught up with me. It caught
Yeah.
up with me to where I'm like, who am I? Like, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Yeah.
And I had to do a lot of self-discovery and figure out like, who am I and what does the world view me as and what do I want to view myself as?
Wow.
So, yes. And then the other thing is, I would say always be willing to learn, always be willing to be a lifelong learner. There's so many great things that you could be learning all the time from so many different people. And,
Yeah.
so never go out and say you're an expert. Like, you're not an
Yeah.
expert. You just got to keep learning.
You can never master something. I mean, no one
No.
can. No one can. You can't.
Yeah.
Learning
Yeah.
is like a lifelong process. I believe in the same thing. And
Mhm.
I feel that no matter, what you do in life, how much ever experience you gain, you cannot be someone who knows everything. right?
Nope.
Always scope for improvement. Always.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. I'm constantly putting myself through courses and learning from people like I shared who are miles ahead of me. Like, for instance, in professional speaking,
Yeah.
I want to be on those big stages. I want to be sharing my message in front of thousands of people, you know, when
Right.
we get back to it, of course.
Yeah.
But I know that I still need work. Like, I am a work in progress. And I think that if you realize that you're not perfect, you're not an expert, you could still learn so much more. There's still people that know more than you.
Yeah.
You keep learning. You
Exactly.
don't stop.
Right. And I think that's when you also have something to look forward to. I mean, yeah, if
Mhm.
a X thing is done, there has to be something on terms of Y and then Z to come forward for you to, have like a vision, have something to look forward to. Because
Mhm.
if you put an end to it, then how are you going to have that drive and motivation to look up to something new to do? So you need to keep
Right.
learning. Yeah.
Right. I would say, so one of my phrases that I always say is that complacency kills creativity. So when you fall into a state of complacency or you're just in your comfort zone, then
So,
there's
yeah,
no growth. There's no growth. Like,
absolutely.
you have to be willing to pack your bags and move out of there and start
Exactly.
growing.
You have to
And
move out of that shell. Yeah.
you do. I've had, I've met some people that are like, but my business is good. And I'm like, okay, it's good. But I mean, we're in a pandemic right now.
Yeah.
And did you know that was going to happen? And how did you prepare for that? Because I know for me, I had to pivot rather quickly. And
Yeah.
you have to be resilient. You have to say, okay, all right, what's next? Like,
Yeah.
that's the attitude and the mentality that you have to take when you're running a business of, okay, you know what, that's not going to work anymore. I've got to figure this out again. And that's
Exactly.
okay. Like, bring on the challenge. Let's do it.
Right. Branching out with alternatives is something you have to keep doing and pivoting, as you mentioned. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and you have to be adaptable and agile for that.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's like agility training.
agility
Yes. You
training.
absolutely have to be
Yeah,
able to just bounce back.
exactly. Right. So yes, Tisha, coming to the towards the end of the show, how is it that you would, how can our viewers who are listening to you on the podcast post this podcast get in touch with you and maybe keep themselves updated with the kind of work you're doing?
Sure, sure. Well, the best place to find me is on my website, and that's tishamarie.com.
Okay.
I'm on all social media channels, but LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time. It's actually how I met Daria here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We connected on one of my posts and had
Right.
a virtual latte, and
Yeah.
was actually interviewed by her what's it, eat my news,
Eat my
is
news.
that the
Right. Right.
eat my news,
Yeah.
one of her blogs. And so that's where people can find me. But if they go to my website, they can download the book. You said I have 3 books. I do. The third book is a closing thoughts. It's a quotes book,
Okay.
and it's 50 quotes, my favorite quotes, everything
Wow.
from like how to get out of your comfort zone, how to take time away, like how to incorporate work-life balance. So a lot of great tips, but through quotes.
Yeah.
And right now, Daria, I know you're following along with this, but because my books are done, the last one
Yeah.
came out in 2018, I
Right.
decided that every single Monday for the next 52 weeks, I'm at
Okay.
like week 24 now,
Yeah.
I was going to write another story with a life lesson and do it in a video form. So
Oh,
if people
wow.
are going onto my blog, they can continue the story where they left off if they read the book, or even if they just want to start right where I am
Wow.
now, more in present day.
Yeah.
They can keep seeing the stories, reading the stories, and listening to these rule of life lessons. So those are just some great tips,
Yeah.
and storytelling.
That's
Get a
amazing.
little idea for what I was going through.
Yeah. I love it. I love the idea of doing that. So I guess our viewers have got, I mean, a ton load of golden nuggets throughout this entire podcast. Be it about entrepreneurship, be it about writing your book, be it about juggling between your professional and personal life, or just giving back to the society. So we are so glad to have you, Tisha, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful session. And I just wish you all the very best for all your future endeavors and everything that is to come for you.
Thank you so much, Daria. I hope the same for you as well. Congrats. I know you're up to big things. It's great to be able to connect with you. I feel like LinkedIn has made it where I can connect with people all over the world, you being one of them, and having opportunities like this. And I'll just say this at the end, that opportunities are everywhere. You just have to go out and find them. They are everywhere, even in a pandemic.
I couldn't agree more. And it's just put out so well. They're all around you. You just have to go out and fetch for them. Yeah.
Yes. And ask. Yes.
And
Go
ask.
find them and go ask.
Yeah. So yeah, let's end the session on this note. And thank you everyone for viewing the session, and we hope that you had a good time. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.